am Deidre Quinn, and welcome to Pending and Trending, a podcast that started in real estate and grew into so much more. Here, we talk about the power of building wealth, creating opportunities, and designing a life that lasts for generations. With expert guests and real conversations, my mission is simple: to help you elevate your journey and build the legacy you deserve. Welcome back to Pending and Trending. I'm here today with Abraham Gray. He is an Atlanta-based entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and a lender. He's built a diverse portfolio, including martial arts gyms, axe throwing venues, and he's an active investor and operates a lending business that provides capital for fix and flip projects throughout the Atlanta, Georgia area. Abraham, I'm so happy to be here with you today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So from gyms and axe throwing venues to real estate, what inspired such a widely diverse business portfolio?
Yeah, it all started with one thing, and I got good at it. And then over time, just got into different things, started doing good with that, and more stuff. And the more stuff I had that was good, the more money you're able to make. And it really, once you understand one business, it's easy to understand the rest of the businesses once you understand it well, because they all have the same components. They all have, maybe the stuff that you sell or the products or the services are a little different, but the core marketing and management and operations and all that's the same. So it's just plugging it into a different business.
Which business did you start in?
I started in sports cards. When I was 15, I started selling baseball cards, football cards, and I did that until in my early 20s, and then I started getting into a lot of other businesses.
Okay, great. So what kind of mind shift did you go through when you were transitioning from plugging into different businesses to then being a real estate lender? Was it the same, or were there some differences there?
It's a little bit different. There's a lot of similarities, but it's a little bit different. So I would say that you just got to get really good at the stuff that you need to get good at for doing loans, because you can get really screwed pretty easy if you loan too much, or you don't have the right documents, or you don't understand the laws. So I would say you would go out and talk to people that are doing it, other lenders, other people, other attorneys, and ask them all the different things that you need to know, and then start doing it a little bit, and then make sure that you feel comfortable, and then doing it bigger and bigger. That's how I started. I wasn't super comfortable in the beginning. I was comfortable enough. And then throughout the process, I learned some stuff the hard way, some stuff the right way, with asking people and learning from people. And once you know it all, or pretty much know it all, you're good to go.
So it hasn't been without mistakes along the way, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah. Everything I've ever done in my life, I've had plenty of mistakes. That's how you learn. You learn from them. And when you make a bad mistake, you make sure you don't do that crap again. So it's definitely important to have some mistakes. Hopefully they're not ones that are going to kill you. But yeah, I've had some bad ones. I've had some minor ones. But now I know to learn from people as much as possible before I do stuff. Don't just guess and try stuff without having really good data or having some help.
Yeah, for sure. So for somebody that wants to flip houses, what would you say is the most important things to learn so that they don't make huge mistakes?
If you're flipping houses, the most important thing would be to underwrite deals. So you have to know what a property is worth as is. You have to know what it's worth when you go ahead and fix it up and sell it. And then you got to know how much the rehab is. So without knowing those three things, you can't be successful in flipping homes. The only thing that could save people a little bit by not making crazy mistakes is getting lenders to finance their deals, because the lenders will be like, oh no, you're paying too much, or we can't lend you that much. If all of a sudden lenders tell you they can't loan you as much as that you want, that's a red flag. Maybe I'm paying a little bit too much for it. I pay cash for all my deals, so you just got to really know what you're doing. There's nobody to save me. But most people use hard money lenders or private money lenders, and if they know what they're doing, which they should, they will save the people. But if you don't know how to underwrite and know what stuff's worth and what rehab costs are, make sure you have good contractors that aren't going to screw you over. There's no way to make money in the business without knowing that stuff.
Sure, that makes sense. So as a hard money lender, what's one of the biggest mistakes new investors make?
I'm more of a private money lender. Hard money lenders are more institutions. Private money lenders uses your own money. So I use my own money, and I have investors' money, like friends of mine or just people I know that I use their money. But as a private money lender, the things that I see people make the most mistakes on, people thinking stuff is worth a lot more than it is. The other thing I see is people find a deal, they get too attached to it, and they just don't know how to find tons of deals. So they find one deal and they think that's the only deal they can get, and they'll buy a bad deal. Another thing I see a lot is people spend too much money in doing the wrong type of rehabs, or sometimes not doing enough, buying in the wrong areas. Contractors is a big one. People I've seen get screwed over crazy amounts of times just by having the wrong contractors that steal their money, contractors that do a shitty job. Those are the main things. And then another thing I see is borrowers that raise money and borrow money, but they don't borrow enough. So they get to 80-90% of the job, and then they run out of money, they can't finish, and now they're screwed. So now they lose the property because they don't have the last bit of money to finish the job. So people are very optimistic when they're doing this, more optimistic than when you should be. And that bites people in the butt, whether if they think it's worth too much, worth more than it is, or whether it's they have enough money, they don't need to spend as much money, or whatever it is. So you just got to be more on the safe side than on the real optimistic side, and then that should help a lot.
That's great advice. So what specific real estate market trends are you capitalizing on right now in 2026?
Yeah, so right now, the market has been going down every single month. I'm in Atlanta. I think the whole country's like that, but Atlanta's a big market, and usually stuff in Atlanta is similar to the rest of the country, besides maybe a few markets. And what I've seen is every single month for the past 6 to 9 months, the market dropping between 1% and 2% a month. So stuff 6 months ago was worth at least 10% more, if not 15% more than what it's worth now. I am just being more careful buying stuff knowing that the market is going down. But one thing you can do is you could definitely get better deals now. So it's a buyer's market. So if you want to buy stuff to hold, you could definitely get stuff way cheaper now than you could a year ago, 2 years ago. It just depends. What I see a lot of people doing now is getting properties that they use to do co-living at. So a lot of people are getting rentals that they used to just do regular rentals at, and now they're doing pad splits or renting it by the room. And that's a big strategy people are doing now, and that's a way that they can cash flow a lot. I see a lot of people, and me too, so we buy a lot of creative deals every single month. So I'm buying at least a couple, one or two every month that are owner finance or a subject to, where I have really low interest rates, so they cash flow better with whatever you want. Whenever the market's weak, it's easier to buy that type of stuff because people need to sell their properties, and they're more motivated because there's very few buyers compared to when the market's really hot and everybody wants to. So you have more negotiating power, whether it's price, terms, or whatever else.
Sure, that makes sense. So you mentioned tenants. So if you have tenants in a property, do you structure that differently? And how do you structure your business to protect the asset if a tenant stops paying and still living there?
Yeah, so I have a little bit over 200 and something rentals, and I have property managers for basically all of them. I have one main property manager that manages most of them, and they have processes in place. And for the most part, if someone doesn't pay, you can kick them out pretty fast in most counties. But there are 3 counties in Atlanta that are very hard to kick people out, or it takes a lot longer. So if I'm in those 3 counties, I'm going to expect 3 to 6 months or longer to kick people out. But in almost every other county, within a month or so, I could get people out. So if they don't pay, we have their deposit. And we're going to lose a little bit. But what's more important is, besides kicking people out, is just vetting them a lot better before you let them in your properties. We have a whole vetting thing to make sure that they have jobs, that they haven't been evicted before in the past however many years, and all these different things to make sure they can afford it and make sure that they've been good for the past however many years that we look for that tenant. And then, of course, if it's more risky, besides getting a deposit and first month's rent, maybe you get a deposit, first month's and last month's rent, or you can make them pay a little bit more upfront or whatever you need to if it's a little bit more of a risky situation.
Very good. Where do you see the biggest untapped opportunities right now?
So there's tons of untapped opportunities, but if you're talking about real estate specifically, I would say that there's so much somebody can do without having any money, needing anything, just going on the internet, on social media groups, and finding all kinds of properties, being able to buy it, sell to someone else, and make a spread on the difference. I've taught a bunch of people in my office and even my kids of how to find people that are selling properties and knowing how to underwrite them, making sure that you lock them up at a good price, and then they could just sell them to somebody else, make 10, 20, 30,000 bucks and be done with it. So I think that a lot of people don't realize how many opportunities there are like that, where you could make a lot of money really just being aggressive first to action. You gotta be first, and you gotta be aggressive, and you gotta stay on top of stuff. But if you do that, there are thousands of opportunities every single week on social media, on all the Facebook groups, real estate, and just all over the internet that you could buy stuff and sell it. And most people are too lazy, or most people, they try it for a week and they're not successful and they give up. But once you do one or two deals like that and realize that it's just a numbers game, people can make a lot of money doing that.
That's great. So, with such a diverse mix of your businesses and your properties, it sounds like you have quite a portfolio there. What does the next evolution look for you and your portfolio? What direction are you headed?
Yeah, I don't really want to do anything different. I just want to do a lot more of what I'm doing. I'm trying to always buy more properties. I'm always trying to lend more money out. I'm always trying to find more investors. But really, I don't like switching up and changing stuff. So a lot of people, I guess they call it shiny object syndrome. I'm really good at a few things. I'm not really good at most stuff. I'm good at very few things. I just want to keep doing those few things over and over as much as possible. I don't try to get into all this other stuff because that's just not what I'm good at. So I stick to what I'm good at and just try to grow it. And now my kids are at an age where they're just getting out of school and being able to do this stuff. We do a lot together. I'm showing them how to do it, and they could start doing a lot of what I'm doing and grow the business.
So, let's talk about that for a minute. How old are your kids?
So I have 17, 16, and 14. And they're all about to have a birthday within the next month or a few months. So it's going to be about 18, 17, 15 really soon.
Okay, so how do you start teaching them these financial lessons, and how are you teaching them? Do you teach them bit by bit? Explain to us a little bit about how that.
Since COVID, I started doing like a kids class for a year or two, where I just had my kids and a bunch of my friends' kids come on, and I would just teach them stuff that I feel like they don't learn in school, about people, about money, about real estate, about business, just about all kinds of stuff. So they've been hearing it for years, little bits and pieces here and there, but it's hard to remember everything. And then as they got older, and they'd come into my office in the summer after school, stuff like that, and then they'd just sit there, watch what I do. And then on the weekend, sometimes we'd come in for a couple hours in the office, and I'd have my whiteboard. I'd explain to them different things, whether it's about about taxes or about buying and selling or whatever it is, just so they understand that stuff. And it's amazing how and none of the stuff I show them that they actually learn in school, which is probably the most important stuff to learn, but they don't teach that stuff. So yeah, as we have a little bit of time, and now my oldest kid just graduates high school this week actually. So he'll be in the office all the time. And my middle kid, he's been doing homeschool for this past year, and so he's in the office all the time. So just being around and seeing it all, and me showing them what to do and then doing it, it's just, you get better at it every week.
That's great. It's so important to teach the next generation. And it's certainly something that they don't teach in school. So, bless you. So as far as, do you have specific tax strategies that you look at when you're,
Yeah. Yeah. So I have all kinds of different tax strategies. So I do pretty well. So I make a decent amount. So I want to pay as little taxes as possible legally. So one of my main things now is I buy a certain amount of real estate every year that I keep. So I'm buying at least $5 million of property that I keep every year. So they're long-term rentals or sometimes commercial properties or whatever it is. And I get big tax depreciations on that. So that saves most of my taxes. And then I have a few other strategies. But as long as you keep these properties for long periods of time, you could go ahead and do cost segregations on them. And you could write off 30% or so the first year. And if you're buying that much every year that you're holding, you could really minimize your taxes down to very little, if almost zero. And then the way that it makes the most sense is all these properties I'm buying, I'm either buying them mostly subject to or seller finance, or sometimes I'm getting loans from the bank. So I have very little of my own cash tied up anyway. And then I'm saving more money than I'm actually putting out in the initial amount when I purchase them. So that's how I do most of it. But in the past, I've done all kinds of stuff. I've done conservation easements where I buy property and donate it to the government, and they give you certain amounts of credit for that. I do all kinds of other credits. Like in Georgia, we have movie tax credits. You could buy credits off people that have extra credits and save money that way. There's lots of different strategies, but the one that I've been using the most lately is the depreciation with real estate. I used to do a captive insurance. There's an insurance thing. It's called a captive insurance. You could buy this insurance policy and basically insure all kinds of crazy stuff. You can insure that you're insured if an alien attacks you, you're safe. You could insure basically stuff that's impossible to happen. You could insure, and you pay a policy to one company to your other company, and you get to write off about half what you would pay is almost gone because it's different types of income. So I used to do that a lot before I bought tons of real estate. But there's so many different strategies. You just got to get with your accountant and see what makes sense. And they change the laws every single year, so who knows what you could or can't do now compared to what I used to do.
That's right. So how do you keep up on all those laws?
You just have a good accountant, and every year they learn everything new. I have a big firm, and there's tons of people in there, and they all specialize in something different. And they're like, oh, you just can't, Congress came up with this new law, so now you can't do this, now you can do this, and now you can benefit more on this, benefit more on that. And you pay a lot of money to the accountants, but they save you way more money than you're paying them, as opposed to just hiring a cheaper accountant that can't. Now, if you don't have a whole lot of money in taxes you're paying, there's no point to have those type of people. But if you're making a lot of money, it's insane not to have big firms that know every loophole, or most of them.
That's great. That's great advice. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, the only thing I would say is anyone that doesn't know who I am, the stuff that I do is I'm buying about 15 properties a month in the Atlanta markets. I'm buying anywhere within an hour drive of Atlanta. It's a 2-hour radius from east, west, north, south. I'm always looking to buy more. I want to buy a lot more. When the market was really good in the 2020, 21, 22, half of 2023, I was buying 30 properties a month. And I got down to 10, then I got back up to 15. I'm always trying to buy more. There's just harder to find good deals when the market's going down. So I'm always looking for more properties. I'm always selling properties. Of all the properties I buy, I probably rehab about a third of them, and I sell off the others to other investors that rehab them, because I don't have enough crews to rehab every single one, but I rehab all the ones that I don't have investors for. I do tons of loans. So anyone that ever needs money in Georgia, anywhere in Georgia, funding everyone's fix and flips. I have $40 million out all the time for other people's loans that I'm funding their fix and flips. Anyone that needs loans, definitely reach out. Anyone that has money they want to invest in putting out in different loans and stuff, they can reach out too. But I always have plenty of extra money. So those are the things that people should know about me, that what I can do. And very easy to reach all my social medias, just Abraham Gray, Gray. And then, of course, I do everything by email. By email, I respond instantly, really fast. We've emailed back and forth a few times. But yeah, if you email me, it's just my name, Abraham, at MMAATL.com, which is Mixed Martial Arts ATL Atlanta. So Abraham MMA. I have a whole bunch of gyms, like you were saying earlier. So I have a lot of martial art gyms and CrossFit and cardio kickboxing and all that. So I use that email because it's the shortest 6 letters instead of having this long ad. I like having it as short as possible. So those are my 6 letters. As for my martial art gyms, I use that email address.
That's great. Thank you so much for being on with us today and for all the valuable shares. And our listeners know how to connect with you. So that's great. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A huge thank you to Freddie Rapina for joining us today and challenging us to think differently about wealth. Whether you're playing checkers or you're ready to start playing chess, the biggest takeaway is that building wealth starts with mindset, strategy, and creating income streams that give you more freedom, both now and in the future. As always, thank you for tuning in to Pending and Trending. I'm your host, Deidre Quinn. Until next time. Thanks for tuning in to Pending and Trending. Remember, generational wealth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by action. If you like today's episode, share it with a friend, subscribe, and let's keep elevating your journey together.